Good morning. Today is Thursday, the 27th day of Menachem Av, and we continue on chapter 8, letter 8 of Igeret Hakodesh. The Alter Rebbe here compares the giving of tzedakah to planting. So just to recap a little bit what we're talking about. We explained in the last few days that when you go to daven, it says, Ani b'tzedek echeze panecha. With tzedek, which tzedek means justice, righteousness, means tzedakah also, charity. Echeze panecha, I will see your face. When you come to daven, you give tzedakah first. This is the simple meaning. When you come to daven, you come to see Hashem, you give tzedakah. But here the Alter Rebbe takes it and explains it the deeper meaning in connection between tzedakah and the davening. And by explaining first that what does it mean davening? What happens when you pray? When you pray, you're actually seeing God's face, so to speak. Echazeh panecha. Seeing God's face means that you connect to God in an inner way. And when you connect to Hashem in such a way, it is something that you cannot achieve. The connection to Hashem is something you cannot achieve, not even in the Gan Eden, in the future world. And Alter Rebbe explained that this comes as a result of the tzedakah. When you give tzedakah, Hashem gives midah keneged midah, measure for measure. That Hashem gives you the ability to connect them in such a way. But we finished yesterday with a question asking, really, it's not even close to what you give, what we gain. That deep connection by davening. We gain so much, way, way beyond of what we give. We give tzedakah, yeah, we help another person to have life in this world, whatever he needs. But what we gain, it says, Yafeh shah achas b'tshuva ma'asim tovim ba'olam hazeh mikol chaya olam haba. One moment of tshuva and good deeds in this world is greater than the entire world to come. So what we gain in davening is more than the entire world to come. So this we need to understand. How is it that through such a simple act of doing kindness and tzedakah, we gain so much? And the answer is, and today, the Alter Rebbe begins the explanation of the answer, is this is why the verse, our sages, the Torah, compares the giving of tzedakah to planting. And it goes to analyze what happens when you plant a seed into the ground. You plant one seed, and what grows? A whole tree grows. There's different types of planting. There's planting of wheat, kernels of wheat. You plant a kernel, one kernel, and a whole stalk of wheat grows. You plant vegetables, cucumbers. So there it's a little different than the wheat. The wheat, whatever you plant, that's what grows, but just in much more numbers. The same kernel grows, whatever you planted, the same kind of kernel grows. In vegetables, you plant the seed of the vegetable and it grows. The vegetable obviously has a different, the meat of the vegetable, that's a different thing. But still, it changes the quality also, but it's still somewhat limited. Then you have a planting of a seed of a fruit. Then it grows something totally beyond any limitations. You grow one seed and a whole tree of fruits grows. So what happens then? How does this thing happen? And the Alter Rebbe is going to explain that what happens really, the seed doesn't make it grow. The seed goes into the soil and it rots, it deteriorates, and decomposes. And only then it triggers something, the power of growth within the soil to grow the tree. So the seed, by decomposing and becoming nullified, it triggers something deep into the soil, the power that the soil has into bringing something into, it triggers the power of the growth to grow a tree. And that grows according to the seed. The seed, which is, let's say it's a seed of an apple tree, and it decomposes, it triggers within the ground the power of the growth to grow something which is similar to what was nullified, which is an apple. So let's look inside the way the Alter Rebbe says this. The above concept, however, can be understood by way of analogy. But the analogy, when you sow a seed of grain or planting kernels of fruit, so the shoot that sprouts from the seed and the tree with its fruit from the kernel, they are not the very essence of and being of the seed and kernel at all. Because the essence and being of the seed has been spent and been decayed in the soil. It is the vegetative property in the soil itself, this power of growth, the vegetative property, rather than the particular vegetative power that resulted in the seed or the kernel, which brings about the growth of the shoot or the tree and its fruit. So they have this vegetative properties in the soil. However, without the seed, it doesn't grow. Without the seed, that property is concealed. So what happens with the seed triggers it, stimulates it to start growing. It is only that the earth vegetative power does not manifest its power outwardly from the potential to the actual. How does it come out? Only says ki'im al yedei azera ve'agarim, except by the means of the seed and the kernel. So what happens then? How does it work? That they are decayed in the soil, and whose whole power, the power of growth that originated in the earth's vegetative power that was implanted in them as they grew, so this whole power has been consumed by the vegetative property in the soil, so that they unite and become one. In other words, what he's saying, there is the power in the soil, the vegetative powers. There is a vegetative power in the seed that came from the soil. And now this vegetative power becomes nullified and decayed. And once it becomes nullified and decayed, it becomes unified with the vegetative power in the soil, and it triggers it to grow something similar to its own. In this way, the vegetative property actualizes its potential. And diffuses vitality that makes possible the growth of a shoot that is related to the seed that was sown. But it's not only growing one seed. Though with a very great increase in any single shoot. And the same thing was with fruit. With fruit, it's even more so. Likewise, likewise, there are many fruits in a single tree. Not only is there many in quantity, but it's also different quality. And says, moreover, the very nature and essence of the fruit immensely excels the nature and essence of the planted kernel. The fruit is a whole different kind of being. Similarly, also says also it's with vegetables. The same is true with the produce of the earth, which grows from seeds, just like kernels such as cucumbers and the like. And all this is so because the stem and root of the vitality of the fruits issues from the vegetative powers in the soil. That's what it comes from. It comes from the vegetative powers. Now, this vegetative powers includes the vitality of all fruits and causes them to grow. So and the seeds only reveals and brings out and stimulates that vegetative power to grow something similar to what it was planted. Says, well, the kernels that are sown in the ground are only like an arousal from below. This arousal from below is being referred to in the writing of Rabbi Shlomo, the Arizal of blessed memory. It's called the elevation of Maim Nukvim. Maim Nukvim means the feminine waters. So what is he saying? He's saying, he's giving us the example of the growth of the planting. So he's saying what happens how does the tree grow? How does the fruit grow? How does the vegetable grow? It is all by planting the seed. And the seed, what does the seed do? It triggers the vegetative powers to come out from potential to revelation. This is a concept that is true in many cases in the Hasidus. It is explained this concept. A similar thing can be taught, is explained also when we're talking about a teacher and a student. I mean, you're teaching here on Zoom. It is a big difference when you teach online and people are listening, people are willing to hear, or when nobody's listening. Or if you're sitting with a student and the student shows this interest, is not interested, that can shut off the teacher's way of thinking. It shuts you off. Because the interest of the recipient triggers the giver to give. It empowers and actually stimulates the teacher to give. And this is true in so many areas. Relationship between men and women. When the recipient is interested, that triggers the man also. And that is true throughout. So this is the way the Alter Rebbe is going to explain, which the final explanation will come tomorrow, Mirz Hashem, that tzedakah is a similar thing. What happens with tzedakah? When a person gives the tzedakah, he gives of his own, nullifies his own interest to give to something else, someone else. That triggers the concept of tzedakah above, and this is why, as a result, it's not that something grows exactly similar to what you give. When you give, it triggers the giving from above, from the root where you come from, when your source of your neshama comes from, opens up, and therefore the flow that comes from there, the blessing that comes from there is way, way beyond anything that you invested. So this is the end of today's share. Make sure to share this. Invite people to join us live here at 9 o'clock. The link is in the description below. And any questions? We can take now questions.